The rules of basketball are so perfect. You've got a three-point line, you've got timers for the shot clock, you've got periods that we could tighten up to be the right time frame. So just the inherent rules of basketball made for really a great product strategy.
People have asked me about the influence of arch rivals on NBA Jam, obviously, because it's a lot of the same gameplay mechanic, and we were first. But all I really know is that I've been told that Mark Trammell was a fan.
I think maybe I've played that game 3 or 4 times total in my life. It's just not a game that really appealed to me with, you could kind of pull the pants down. They had a punch.
He asked us about our interest in doing licensed products, officially licensed products, and we were resistant, mainly because on my side I didn't want to do photographic stuff. I wanted to keep doing cartoons. I felt that's where the humor was going to be.
Neil Nicastro came into my office one day and he said, how come you're not pursuing the NBA license?
If they're the real basketball players, that's what the players are going to want to be. They're going to want to, they have their favorite basketball stars. They want to play as those basketball stars. That's what we have to do.
We made the pitch.
Williams Electronics is currently developing an arcade-based 4-player video basketball game, one which employs lifelike digitized graphics. First, basketball players are videotaped in a studio performing hundreds of moves. Artists digitize this footage into individual frames, which are stored and played back in sequence or animated to create a video basketball player capable of performing on command.
Well, the NBA's immediate reaction was, hey, thanks, but no thanks. Their kind of understanding or perception of the arcade business was rooted there in Times Square, which was a very seedy area at the time, and they did not want the NBA logo presented in that atmosphere.
I remember a comment internally of like, don't they realize how much money they're going to make? Seriously? I mean, we're not even going to cover the salary of one player. Let's face it, the NBA will continue whether they do a game with us or not.
So our video guy, once again, he said, I can solve this. He went out to family entertainment centers around Chicago, and he took videos to show what a real arcade is like. We sent that back to the NBA to tell them this is what it's like, not Times Square. They accepted that, they understood, and they started talking deal terms with Roger Sharp.
Understand and appreciate that there had never been a professional sports league license in coin-op.
Well, the logistics of getting all the players in our studio, and then the logistics of having them do every animation over and over and over again, because there was, a few hundred animations, and then the logistics of then going through and stripping out all those, it couldn't be done. Like, there's just no way.
Okay, all right, that's good.
We figured out a system for using an attachment system that games typically use for putting different types of guns or weapons or props in characters' hands.
And so Sean Liptak trimmed off a head, and he pasted that head on to prove that we could kind of change up a different, flesh tone, a different look.
There were 16 different head angles that we had to use. One looking forward, one looking up, one looking down, one looking left, one looking right, one looking left up, one looking left down, one left right, all the way around.
And again, this is before the internet. This is before, any easily accessible resource. So we were looking at VHS tapes of the biggest dunks of all time, looking at the athletes and trying to trim out their faces at these different angles.
We thought, hey, why don't we put our heads in? Let's be in the game, ourselves. How cool would that be? That's worth doing the game right there for. We got everybody from around who wanted to be in there, and we'd get them into the studio and we'd shoot all our angles. And then there was one guy that we worked with, Sheridan Osler, who came in with a derby hat on his head. And we're like, hey, Sheridan, you want us to shoot you with that hat on your head? He's like, yeah, this is my derby, And so we go, okay. And so we shot him with the derby on his head and put him in the game and didn't think anything of it. And then I think, we put the game on test and people freaked out because it was a person with a derby. You'd never seen a person with a derby playing a basketball game before. So like within a few weeks, you know, throughout the arcades that we had it on test in, everybody's playing Sheridan's head with a derby hat. Funny because we got an NBA license, but people like playing the special characters more than they like playing the NBA players.
But we were doing things now like putting in the Mortal Kombat characters.
The NBA had a fit when they saw the Mortal Kombat characters.
And I thought, oh, gamers are going to love that, a little crossover thing, that's great. And so Mark says that on the record in an interview, and I go and I type it up. And a week and a half later, I get a phone call from Mark, which I'm not expecting. And he goes, yeah, I needed to follow up with you on something that came up in our interview. Remember that thing about the Mortal Kombat secret characters and Tournament Edition? I'm like, yeah, I'm looking forward to that. He goes, yeah, we've been on the phone with the NBA, and they're not really into the idea.
And it was not a good situation, and we had to scrabble very, very quickly to produce a new set of ROMs that did not have the Mortal Kombat characters in them.
That traditional gaming audience that wants to find secrets, that needs to collect every coin in the game, that wants to know every secret warp in every level, that absolutely was catnip to all of the hardcore gamers that were like, well, I know something you don't know.
Having actual announcers, I couldn't push them into the high energy part of being an announcer voice for a quarter at a time video game in an arcade setting.
I had never done any voiceover before. I had never done any sports work before related to acting or voiceover. It was just acting work, stage work, and work at Second City.
So I got Tim in, and he was kind of doing his Marv Albert, but really he just became himself and became that actor.
It was like this. John came in, gave me a script. He said big, he said loud, and I went, he's on fire, rejected, boom shakalaka, he's heating up. And that was about it.
And think about making that system work. We're talking about a system that is calling the play-by-play action, splicing in player names at different levels of inflection.
The reason for the different inflections is just for that variety of before a shot, after a shot, in the middle of a shot. Pippin for 3. Pippin with the dunk. Pippin with the monster jam. Pippin, Pippin, Stockton, Stockton, Stockton! Rebound! And there used to be a game called Run and Gun by Konami that was the first game that actually the camera work seemed to like follow you down the court. I go down, I listen to that game, and I hear the guy go, nice shot.
Take him up, put it up. 3, yes, good shot. Way to go.
What is this guy? Is he medicated or something? That's not how you call a basketball game. I'd go down to the other end and hear, get that stuff out of here, rejected. And I could feel the effect that my voice had on that extra amping up of the situation. So sometimes I'd sneak up behind him, guy would take a shot and I go, ugly shot, puts up a break, or get that stuff out of here. He'd turn around and go, hey, you sound like the guy. I go, I am the guy, dude.
Eugene Jarvis always told me, you know, make sure the player gets more powerful. Never take something away from him. Well, what if we, you know, put the player into a mode where he's on fire and everything's a swish? And we knew right away that, you know, there was a mechanic there that made sense.
And I was saying, oh, that's like, it's unrealistic, you know, it's not, you know, that's not cool. It's gonna be fantasy then. People aren't gonna take it seriously or whatever. And they're like, no, it's video game. It's totally video game. It's totally cool. It's totally cool. And I'm all like, it's not gonna be cool at all. Nobody's gonna like that.
He said, I won't give you the art. I won't give you flame art. And so I actually went back into Smash TV and took the, you know, the flame explosions, attached them to the ball, and, you know, we started the smoke mode and the on fire.
First time that we had seen in the arcade, and these kids who had been playing the game already for a couple weeks had seen, you know, on fire and slamming and shattering the backboard. And the guy just went, ah, he raised his arms up in the air, ah, help! hell no, and ran around the arcade inside. He ran around 4 times. Everybody screamed. Everybody was like, ah! They're like holding their heads like they just saw like the second coming. And we were like looking at each other. We're like, oh my God. It's just such an iconic part of, and just felt so good to see people get that excited about something. We're like, yeah, I think it's gonna be pretty cool.
This is bad, man. This is bad.
If you're playing against the computer, it's never going to allow you to get too far in front. You'll start missing shots, or the computer will start missing shots a lot if it's too far, if the scores are too far in front. So it doesn't allow the scores to get too far apart, and it keeps the excitement of, oh, I can overtake you in the last minute, the last throw, oh, I can win.
If you're in the 4th quarter, and you have, just a few seconds left and have an opportunity to tie the game, to have it go into overtime, and take a shot at the buzzer, the chances are so much higher from the half-court line than it would be from laying it up at any other point in the game.
Rubber banding is I don't know if that was a Mark Turmel call or what the deal was, but the rubber banding in NBA Jam and then later in NFL Blitz and Showtime and all that sort of stuff, it's almost evil. But also it makes for really heightened moments of like, oh man, we went to overtime again. What are the odds? Turns out the odds are pretty good.
We were getting calls about games that were broken. I said, what? Because it's one of the things, you put a game on a test, it's got to work, okay? And to have a game that's not working, it's like the height of stupidity.
And the game was supposedly down, and we says, what the heck's going on here? So you go out there, and you couldn't put any more quarters in the game.
It had accumulated so many quarters that had jammed the coin mech, and you couldn't put any more quarters in it.
Unheard of collections. At all of our test locations, NBA Jam is collecting between 124 and 167% of what Mortal Kombat did during its first 6 weeks.
Jurassic Park was the biggest film at the time, and it was breaking all kinds of earning records. It made $350 million, and that was a milestone that people said, we can't believe it. It's incomprehensible. And here comes NBA Jam, and Mark said, I said, can you tell me about how popular this really is? I can tell you this, NBA Jam made $1 billion. And I said, in quarters?
Anybody that just liked games and liked sports and walked around a mall would hear and see that game, because in malls they were like arcades and there was always groups of people around and they're like, what's that?
And when people are playing together, they're probably more likely to keep playing because you can't just walk off from your friend that you're playing with.
Whereas some games are abstract, or some people just don't want to blast aliens, or they don't want to fight other people. The idea of it's like basketball, but without all of those pesky rules, that becomes a very appealing thing to people that would be into sports but wouldn't be caught dead in an arcade. But here, this is the perfect gateway.